Hey guys, me and Orxler, what ifs? Where I last left off. Let's see, checking. Where I last left off. I got tea. Deku, Sato, and Hizashi had encounters with Nurgle demons and plague marines. Deku killed a hell group single-handedly. Good on him. What happened? Deku and some of the Marines had to clear the entire village, or like little village that was in that town. They understood the necessity of doing it. Like they couldn't, because Nurgle is the most difficult chaos god to get rid of. Every other thing, every other person, and every other chaos god, you literally just have to kill them to death and destroy anything that they could have touched. Like with Zine, she could have had a demon, some sort of sword or something like Sinesh did. But Nurgle is disease, airborne, liquid, anything. He could bring an entire world to heal just by having some of his Marines or some of his followers get down on a world. Doesn't even have to be for a long time. If it's in a populated area, there's no way you're getting rid of it, and you might as well just burn everything that was on that planet. That's essentially what they did to that village, is that they completely leveled it, burning everything, ensuring no toxins, viruses, or anything could remain. And they put out, they searched for miles around to make sure no demons or anything got out. And none of them did. So with Deku and them recovering from this, we're just going to skip forward to going to the practice of UA. And also, after this, I'll have you guys know, I'm finally making let me see what part was. Part 28, What If Deku Was a Fallen. Yep, that is coming back, and then after that, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna start another Bell What If. Sorry for those who enjoyed the What If Bell had Talion's power, but it just doesn't seem to have done that well. From looking at it, it hasn't really done that well. So I'm just gonna cut it off. All right. So sorry for those of you who are looking to enjoy it. I may restart it in the future, but no promises. But anyways, after this, part 28 to What If Deku Was a Fallen. So, we continue on. As Deku and them are prepping for UA, Deku's pretty much a shoo-in for the position. He's been even offered to take he's been recommended. While Sato is now very big, he's a bit taller than the average Space Marine. Not he doesn't tower over them like Deku does, but he is still very tall for a Space Marine. His outfit is, he doesn't have Terminator armor. He has pretty much similar to standard issue Space Marine armor. It's a bit bulkier though, and he has sources for his dual I forgot. Power fist. There we go. And he has dual power fists. Is what I thought would make sense, since super strength plus power fist, they could do a lot of damage. As he tried out the suit one time, and he pretty much was able to knock down 12 Space Marines single-handedly. And his strength actually was able to stand up to Agron's for quite a bit, actually, since his strength is quadrupled, I believe, is how it was. Deku now, he's stronger than Deku when he activates his quirk. No, not surprising, really. He's a bit stronger than Deku. But the thing is that Deku's maybe a bit faster than him. It's power versus speed and such thing when it comes to that. And Sato isn't that slow either. They're pretty evenly matched, you could actually say. but a lot of it has to deal with Sato's quirk giving him that that massive boost he gets. So, as when they finally finish Sato's final stages, Deku actually sort of bowed his head. He said, "Thank you for allowing me to be your teacher for this, Sato. I am very grateful that you allowed me to do so." Now Sato gave his own bow. "Thank you, master," as he's like, "No, I am no longer your master, as I've already told you." As then he stretches his arm out, he's like, "You are my brother," as they lock arms. As Deku also pulls him closer, "You may actually be my other kind of brother, and maybe 200 years." As Sato takes a second to think about it, he's like, "Oh, no. As Deku's like, mm-hmm. As Deku is more lighthearted when it comes to that. Like I said, he isn't some sort of automaton, you could call him. He is very human. He's very emotionally attached and everything. He could be similar to a space marine during the Great Crusade, where they were more human and less how they are now. Emotionally connected, as what I believe they were, is how someone described them as, is that emotionally they're more connected during the Great Crusade, more human. But when it comes to the 40K, they had to become less human. But aside from that, the rest of the lamenters around are actually starting to become more human, you could call it too. They're not as sad anymore, since they really haven't had that whole, bad luck trying to kick them in the teeth. So as Deku and all of them go to deal with the whole UA entrance exam, people are staring at Sato and even Izumi, as they notice that, damn, that man, he's giant. He's big or even bigger than All Might. As when Uraraka is about to fall down, this time, Uraraka is the one falling face first, Deku isn't, he took the recommendation, and just so it is clear, Deku, Momo, and Todoroki are the ones that get through recommendation. As when it came to that, everyone who was there knew about Deku, as the one guy that Todoroki sort of it's "Well done, man." He's seems very happy and upbeat. I forgot his name. Give me a second. Alright, just look it up. His name is Inasa. Or Yorishi. Inasa is what I'll call him. As Inasa is actually sees Deku, he's like, "Oh man, can I have your autograph and all that?" As Deku just lets off his smile and says, "Sure." As Todoroki and Momo, since Momo's taken the recommendation, she actually greets Deku as he says, "Hello Momo, it's a pleasure to see you as always." She's like, "And it is good to see you as always, Deku." As they talk to one another quite respectfully, as people notice. As Todoroki's just like, "Huh. Getting all chummy when we're here to be a hero." As Deku actually excels in the exams. Deku, when it comes to getting past that test, he just runs. As everyone's like, "Holy shit, he's fast." And as I'm sorry if it seems like I skipped over the thing with the slime villain. And this Mirio's just getting it. As All Might eventually had, All Might thought about, what if I gave it to this one kid? He saw that he was clearly very heroic. Well, I'll say that he's holding out, as he heard on the thing that Deku wanted to go to UA. So he wanted to see how Deku would perform in these exams. As they're like, it can't be that difficult. As Deku destroys them, completely passing everybody, or close too. Well, I believe, he pretty much excels in all subjects. Now, as we skip over to Sato and Izumi. Sato is smart, you could call him somewhat, but he has difficulty with the UA entrance exam, as he's not the highest, he doesn't have the lowest or highest score. He's somewhere in the middle between that, I would say. As for Izumi, she pretty much aces the test. As they like excel, Izumi even notices Bakugo as Bakugo says, "Hey Izumi," as he just walks past bluntly and says, "Hey Sato," or "Hey Sugar Man," as he just walks past him like very coldly as they notice. As Deku has been interacting more with Bakugo, somewhat. I believe I explained this beforehand, but I'll do it again. He doesn't really hate Bakugo anymore, he's just more or less, he believes Bakugo was arrogant and such, but Deku's just sort of moved past it, realizing that it really isn't something to hold a grudge to. So with him ignoring it, Bakugo just sort of, got over it himself and became less of a jerk. As Sato and Izumi and all of them are sent to different places, Sato's like, "Good luck, Izumi." She's like, "Yeah, good luck, Sato. I'm sure you'll make Deku proud in them." He's like, "I hope." Help my brother. As he calls Deku Big Bro, I would say. It's like, he still wants to maintain a form of respectfulness, you could say. Like, he believes there's still a distance between them. As he's like, "I hope I can, be as good as Big Bro." She's like, "Big Bro?" He's like, "Well, yeah. Again, he, told me not to call him Senpai or Sensei or anything like that. So Big Bro shall suffice." And she's like, "Yeah, whatever you say, Sato." As Sato's, gotten really in touch with this whole brotherhood among the Astartes, as he's even friends with almost all of the Death Watch members, except for, of course, the Inquisitor and the Black Templar. The Black Templar has actually sparred with him on an occasion, and the Black Templar skill was a bit greater than, was a bit good, and Sato's strength and all that was able to keep up with him greatly. I think I may be paying Sato in a bad picture. Sato was able to beat the Templar, but the Templar, if he had Sato's strength, he would be somewhat on par with him, you could say. The only thing that gives Deku an edge over the Templar is, being stronger, way stronger, as well as Sato's quirk. Those are the things that separate the three of them. Skill-wise, Deku's a bit higher since he's trained heavily. He's isn't just casually. He's put himself. He's once just did nothing but training constantly, an entire day of training, while Sato did something similar, a full 12 hours of training of pure swordsmanship combat with Deku. And that's when Deku was holding a little bit back, but not everything. So they are of a higher skill level, you could say. Since, wow, it's confusing, and I'll just leave it at that. As with Deku and them, nope, that's nothing. Sato and them, are there. Sato's, stretching. He's like, "Oh, whew, alright. God bring Lamenter's honor." It's 3, 2, 1, go! As Sato isn't interrupted by Ida or anything. And that whole thing with Ida jumping up and talking to Mike, never really, that happened, but nobody really said a thing. As Sato drank entire a nice bit of sugar, he's just as soon as people said go, they felt a crash. They heard a crack behind them, as then they saw this giant man leaping over all of them and then just rushing forward. As a few robots show up, he just immediately smacks them aside. As Izumi at this point, she's just toasting them and crushing them with telekinesis. As they're all excelling, Sato's ranking in the top 10 already. Or top 5. Same thing with Izumi. As Bakugo is just bam, 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 blasting all around. As they just continue to do better and better. Eventually, with the 0 pointer coming out, as Sato's "Alright, time to go." As then he sees Uraraka trapped underneath the rubble, he's "Oh, fiddle." As he jumps over, he's "Nope, nope, nope." He's "Can't let her down." As he throws the rubble off her, picks her up, and then runs away. stating that he could possibly beat that thing, but there's no point in expending the energy to do so, since the civilian is right here. As then out of nowhere, they feel as more rockets start blasting around them, and that's when some of the other robots have actually started pinpointing on Sato's location. He's like, oh, okay. It's as he notices they seem to be focused on me, as he's like, fly, whoever you are. Your quirk is gravity, right? I saw you using it. Use it now, as he throws her. As the rockets come raining down on Sato, he tries to grab rubble and chuck it at them. While Izumi at the moment, she's just sort of doing her thing. Lightning. Just all around. With her shocking everything around her. Bakugo right now is just destroying robots. So Sato in the middle of it is dodging left and right. As he jumps up, he's like, This isn't as nearly as dangerous when I was training with Space Marines, who are literally meant to handle the worst of the worst in the galaxy far, far away, or in galaxy different universe. UA is not in their right minds if they're sending practically untrained people at robots with missiles, as he grabs a rocket out of midair and redirects it, eventually disabling all the robots around them. The points that Izumi and Sato get are like pretty much matched, where Sato actually gets a bit more, like Sato wins it overall because of him saving Izumi. Not Izumi, Uraraka, where Izumi really didn't have to save anybody really. She sort of went off on her own and just sort of zapped everywhere, and nobody was really sort of put in peril at the Zero Pointer's hand. But aside from this, everything's all good. As they eventually return home, as Deku talks about how he did with the recommended exam, everything's all good. As they all open their thing together, as the people, the lamenters and such at the ship, know what Deku's aspirations were and actually sort of support him in it, saying that it's a Space Marine's duty to protect humanity, even if it's from itself, so he can be a hero in their eyes. As they saw some of his exploits, they're like, he really is strong. So, and they even greatly supported Sato, as they all thanked them, like, really, they were like really thankful to them. As they talked about how would they get their power armor such if they were allowed to use those as hero costumes. As Momo's dad actually presented the opportunity, saying that they would actually say that they're the ones who invented it and they want to sponsor Deku and them for helping Momo in a thing that happened a long time ago. So they agreed to it, and they would do that as an excuse. As I believe they do have blueprints to make some power armor. So they would be given the designs and some materials to make it, but they just said they literally put billions, like almost $1 billion into one of these suits. Well, as Sato said, they couldn't be mass produced, as his cover of why they aren't just mass producing them to give them to everybody. That's what the excuse was. As they had it shipped over to UA, Power Loader was like, oh. Even like, and Mei Hatsume, she hasn't heard about that stuff yet, so. Sorry. So they arrive at UA, they all, as Sato and Deku look at the doors, they're like, thankfully they made them massive. As they like step through them, as Deku's wings are, like Deku's trying to keep his wings like as close together and as small as he can make them. As he has to stretch them out to get through the door since his like chest is so wide, he just sort of steps through there like he's going sideways like a crab. As everyone sees one wing pop out. Then as he gets like halfway in there, he pulls it back and then comes through the rest of the door with his other wing. As he's like, oh, they really need bigger doors, I feel like. As they come in and as Sato and Deku find their seats, they're like, they also gave us special seats. Awesome. As Sato's like, man, these seats are actually really comfortable, as they creak under their weight. As they do have their weight, so they had them reinforced with metal, like a lot of metal, as they're like, these things are like cast steel, things are like pure steel, or pure iron, or something along those lines. Sato and Deku are just like sitting down politely and waiting, as they just talk with each other. So how did you do in the exam? I did good, as they just go on like that. Izumi talking with Momo, since she really hadn't met Momo, but Deku did speak of her. So she's starting to get to know her a bit better now. As we move along, with Aizawa eventually showing up like, hey. As it's just like, oh, hello, creepy man. As Sato was the one getting a lot of praise for the whole saving Uraraka during the whole entrance exam. As Deku looked at Sato, he's like, good job, Sato. As Izumi's like, oh yeah, he did. Didn't I help that girl with not falling over when we got into the entrance exam? Huh. Funny how fate plays out. As they just wait, and eventually Aizawa shows up. What happens with Bakugo? He comes over and talks with Deku for a little bit. As he's like, how the hell are you so big? He's like, my quirk activated. As Deku like sort of clenches his fist, but I didn't just let it take over. I trained like hell for years on end. He's like, what about this guy? As he's like, oh, that's just, part of his quirk. His quirk had an evolution, is what he calls like his body to produce more muscles and such. As Deku put him through the similar training to him. By now, Bakugo can't do it, since, you gotta be younger when you do it, as Deku says it, as they're all 18, so no starties for them. Bakugo's like, that's bullshit. He's like, hey, it's just how it is. He's like, well, I'll still try to beat you, Deku, as Deku says he welcomes the challenge. As Sato's like, alright, as they're all just having a nice bit of banter. Eventually, when Aizawa shows up, they go out to do the whole, the exam thing, as Sato and Deku are told to change inside the classroom because the locker rooms won't hold them, literally, if the doors are too small. So they have so instead of changing in the classroom, excuse me, they had to add a special room for very, very big students. So as they change in the very, very big students, and their lockers are giant as well. So they get in their nice little gym uniforms. As they come out, Deku even has like little places for his wings to come out. It's like, you know how difficult it is to get stuff that actually allows my wings to come out of my back? It's like, guessing very, yes. And he's like, it's so difficult that sometimes I literally have to have my shirt specially ordered with slits in the back just so my wings can go out them. As it's like, that cannot be comfortable, Deku. He's like, it is not. As they go out, and then comes the whole, test that Aizawa has them do. Deku and all of them do it exceptionally well. They crush anything that's in their way. They beat almost everybody. Bakugo may be getting, well, not even Bakugo. Sato gets in the maximum thing of how far he threw a ball. And since, he gets close to what he pretty much he got farther than what Deku did in the original. As he's like, whew, good. As eventually they all have to go home, having enjoyed UA, as they all hang out for a little bit, along with Uraraka and Ida tagging along. Now, the next day. Or was that a good part of it off at? I'll continue it for a bit longer. Sorry, it seems like I'm jumping through events. Just I've sort of have been able to think of a lot of filler for the recent, next parts. I can make up a, story that, as you probably know, it's 13, maybe 11, 13 parts I have before the actual story begins. So sorry. if you don't like that. But what happens now is that Deku's gonna be, well, they're all going to decide who should be class rep. As Deku and Sato are actually chosen to be vice rep and actual rep. Deku being chosen to be the normal president, while Sato's vice president. As he's like, "Come on, Deku, really?" As it's like, "Yep." As they're seen as the class's aces, aside from maybe Bakugo and Izumi, as they would put it. As Momo has been training her quirk quite a bit with Deku's help. She's also very muscular, you could say. So, as they go to lunch and everything, they still have that whole alarm thing go off. As Deku talks about his parents and such, and Sato talks about his, they eventually get on the topic of Ida, as he also spills the bean, my brothers and Jinya. They're like, oh yeah, and then eventually the whole, thing happens. Deku's just, in a sea of people with all of them, coming up to his, waist. Maybe some of those, up to his waist, a bit higher. Yeah. As then you got Sato, who everyone is, close up to, below his pec. Before his... somewhere up in his chest area. As Deku looks at Sato as they both nod to each other, as they shout, "Quiet!" As everyone stops in their tracks. As when it came to getting through that, reporter mob earlier, Deku pretty much just grabbed Izumi and grabbed Sato and just flew over the gate. As he's like, "This is not worth our time," as as all three of them landed. It's like, "Hey, it's the Angel!" As people wanted to rush forward to get into the UA. But Aizawa pretty much closed that thing up as soon as they tried. As eventually they get everything to calm down and return to usual. As at this point, I believe this is when Shigaraki slips in. Shigaraki Kurogiriing them. As now, as they're all talking about how that was crazy, All Might's like, I am entering the room like a normal person. As he's like, All Might? As Deku actually feels somewhat inspired, it's like, it's All Might. As he's still somewhat starstruck. A little bit. As Sato is somewhat starstruck. Well, not starstruck, but stunned by All Might being here. But in his eyes, Deku and the Lamenters and all those Space Marines are even greater heroes. Because he got a taste of what they fought somewhat on the daily. Probably weekly or monthly. And he respects All Might, but he has not faced anything, according to his knowledge, like the demons of Korn, Nurgle, Slanesh, any of that. He respects him greatly, but he still thinks the Astartes are far greater. As they talk about, they're going to do the hero exam. As Izumi and Sato are paired up as the villains. While Deku, Izumi, and Sato are paired up as the villains, while Deku and Momo are paired up as the heroes. Well, yeah. Let's switch that around, actually. Deku is on the side of the villains, Sato's on the side of the heroes. Just switch the teams. Momo, Deku, villains. Sato, Izumi, heroes. As Deku talks with Momo a bit about the strategy, fortify the area, whatever you do. Set up traps, do anything you can to slow them down. As she's like, don't you think we can stop them? He's like, we could. There's a slim chance. I could beat either one of them single-handedly, but with two of them working together? When Sato activates his quirk, his strength surpasses mine by quite a bit. Izumi, with her special powers, can force me into position. This is not a fight that's looking to be to my advantage. I can fight almost anybody single-handedly, except maybe All Might. But Sato and Izumi, can get quite fast. As when it came to the armor, they're like, where's Deku in them? As they had the armor shipped in, and the servitors and mechanicus, who are dressed as normal people, actually helped them into their armor. As it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes have passed. As they hear thump, 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 thump. No helmets. They just have like no helmets on this time. They typically would, but not this time. As they just saw like it wasn't really necessary because, you know, they don't want to have the intimidating voices on. Well, actually, let's say they do have the helmets. But I won't be editing the audio until I get to the actual fighting. But with Deku and Sato, as they're listening into what All Might's saying, so everyone still poses the question, as in some of them are like, where'd you get that armor? He's like, you were chosen to sponsor a company, Miss Yaoyorozu's father, actually. We had helped him out quite a long time ago. He owed us a favor, and he said that would be beneficial to all parties involved if we tested out his new armor, specifically designed for us sometime at this point. Plans on making more, but he just doesn't have the resources. Really? It's like, yeah. These things are almost impervious to any firearm, heat, ice, anything you can throw at it. They will most likely be able to tank. It's like up to a tank shell is what they can take. That's just like, Jesus. And he's like, yes. As then they talk about their weapons that they have, as they were allowed to bring in items. As Deku has, they don't have the guns. They do have the not bolters. They don't have the guns, but they do have their melee weapons. As Deku, if he chose, as he told them he has a few weapons, but this time he chose the sword. Actually, he chose the power mace and shield. As Sato came out with he came out actually with one, to like get a feel of like what it'd be like to mix it up, like the hammer in one hand and the power fist in the other, is how he'll roll this time. As he states that, geez, they look like machines of war. As Sato says, well, I thank you. As they're like, I don't know if that would be a compliment, as now Sato's quite a bit more, like a bit more taller than All Might again. Like, even more so. And same thing with Deku, as All Might's like, you two are absolute giants. It astounds me. As it says, thank you, All Might, for your praise. He's like, it's no problem. Now, back to the test. As they get it all laid out and they're entering the building, as Deku stands there ready to fend off his sister and Sato, as he's like, I hope the shield stands and my power and my mace does not falter. As Sato's thinking, we gotta work together, take on Deku, then we'll take down Momo easily. Can't lose track of time though. So, as they march in, and that's where I'm going to end it off at. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you guys continue to enjoy this, and like I said, I'm making the What If Deku was a fallen right after this. I've realized that I haven't been making as much videos. So I'm going to bring back a couple of series to the front. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have a nice day, nice night, nice life.